A 60-year-old retired boxing coach witnesses a stranger collapse from a heart attack on the sidewalk. Without hesitation, he performs CPR for 12 straight minutes until paramedics arrive, saving the man's life. But later that same day, when he receives a speeding ticket while rushing home, and his case comes before Judge Frank Caprio, something remarkable unfolds, a reminder that real heroes still walk among us. This is the story of Tony Coach Duca, a man whose lifelong commitment to helping others meets Judge Caprio's deep respect for everyday heroes, who act when it matters most. Tell us where you're watching from, because this story of courage and compassion speaks to everyone who believes true strength lies in protecting those who can't protect themselves. Friday afternoon, 30 p.m., Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio reviews his docket, filled with traffic violations. One case stands out. Defendant involved in life-saving emergency. Paramedic report attached. The citation reads, Tony Duca, age 60, charged with driving 15, mph over the limit on Federal Hill. Yet the accompanying police and medical reports tell an extraordinary story that happened just minutes before the stop. Tony's letter to the court reads, Your Honor, I accept full responsibility for speeding, but I hope you understand my situation. I had just spent 12 minutes performing CPR on a man who collapsed in front of me. I was shaken and trying to get home quickly to call my wife and tell her what happened. He enters the courtroom with the sturdy frame of someone who has stayed in shape long after his boxing career ended. Dressed in a plain button-down shirt, he carries himself with calm dignity. His rough, calloused hands reveal a lifetime of hard work. Tony spent 35 years coaching amateur boxing at the Providence Community Center before retiring last year. Over that time, he trained more than 200 young fighters, many from challenging backgrounds, teaching them discipline, respect, and how to turn frustration into strength. He's been married to his wife Angela for 38 years, and together they raised 2 daughters, both of whom became nurses. Good afternoon, Mr. Duca. Judge Caprio greets him with clear respect. I've read both the traffic citation and the paramedic report about what happened today. Before we talk about your speeding, please explain to everyone what took place. Tony steps forward with quiet humility. Clearly uneasy about being called a hero, Your Honor, he begins. I was walking to my car after shopping when I heard a heavy thud behind me. I turned around and saw a man about my age collapse on the sidewalk. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. The courtroom falls silent. I ran over and checked for a pulse, nothing. His lips were starting to turn blue. I've been CPR certified for 30 years from my time coaching, so I started compressions right away. Judge Caprio leans forward, visibly impressed by Tony's quick and decisive action. How long did you perform CPR? Judge Caprio, Mr. Duca. Tony Duca. 12 minutes, Your Honor. Though it felt like hours, I kept doing chest compressions and rescue breathing until the paramedics arrived. My back and knees were in pain, but I couldn't stop. The paramedic told me that if I hadn't begun CPR right away, the man wouldn't have made it. They managed to restart his heart in the ambulance. Last I heard, he's stable at the hospital. Judge Caprio reviews both reports carefully, his expression reflecting deep respect. Judge Caprio. Mr. Duca, according to this paramedic report, you likely saved that man's life. You performed textbook CPR under incredibly stressful circumstances. Tony shifts, looking modest. Tony Duca. Your Honor, anyone would have done the same. When you see someone in danger, you help them. That's just how I was brought up. Judge Caprio. The report also mentions you refused to leave until the victim was stable. Is that correct? Tony Duca. Yes, Your Honor. His wife arrived at the hospital and I couldn't leave until I knew she was with him and he was okay. She was terrified. It reminded me of my Angela. Tony's compassion and humility reveal his true character. Judge Caprio sets the reports aside and looks directly at him with genuine admiration. Judge Caprio. Mr. Duca, in my 47 years on this bench, I've met many people who claim to be heroes. But what you did, that's what real heroism looks like. Tony, visibly uncomfortable with the praise, replies quietly. Tony Duca. Your Honor, I just did what any decent person would do. When someone's in trouble, you help. The courtroom falls silent, recognizing something extraordinary. A man who acted selflessly without seeking recognition. He risked his own safety to help a complete stranger without a second thought. Mr. Duca, Judge Caprio began. Tell me a bit about your background. The report says you were a boxing coach. Tony's face lit up slightly. Yes, Your Honor. I spent 35 years at the community center training local kids. I taught them that boxing isn't about fighting. It's about discipline, respect, and standing up for those who can't defend themselves. Judge Caprio nodded, clearly understanding the values that shaped Tony's reaction that day. And those are the same values you brought to that sidewalk, aren't they? I guess so, Your Honor, Tony replied. When I saw that man collapse, my instincts kicked in. I just wanted to protect him. The same thing I've always taught my fighters. You don't walk away when someone needs help. His words revealed how decades of mentoring young people had prepared him for that moment of crisis. The hardest part wasn't doing CPR, Tony continued. It was seeing his wife's face when she reached the hospital. She kept thanking me, but I told her any husband or father would have done the same. You mentioned your own family, Mr. Duca, the judge said. Were you thinking about them during the emergency? I was, Tony admitted. I thought about how I'd want someone to help Angela if she ever collapsed somewhere, or my daughters if they needed it. You can't choose when life puts you in those situations, but you always have control over how you respond. Judge Caprio listens intently, clearly moved by Tony's strong moral compass. Judge Caprio, tell me, what values led you to help a complete stranger? Tony responds, my father was a mechanic. He worked 2 jobs to keep our family going. He used to say real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you're willing to give up for someone else. Boxing taught me that your character shows when you're exhausted, when you're hurting, when giving up would be easier. But today I couldn't walk away. I wouldn't have been able to live with that. Judge Caprio shifts slightly, speaking not only to Tony but to the deeper meaning behind his actions. Judge Caprio, Mr. Duca, what you did was remarkable. The choice to risk your own safety to help someone you've never met. Tony appears modest, slightly uneasy with the attention, but Judge Caprio's tone remains measured and sincere. Judge Caprio, you witnessed a man collapse. Your first thought wasn't about risk, lawsuits, or whether anyone else would step in. You focused only on helping him survive. Returning to his bench, Judge Caprio delivers his decision. Judge Caprio, as for your speeding citation, Mr. Duca, it is fully dismissed. Tony reacts with surprise and appreciation, but Judge Caprio continues. Judge Caprio, more importantly, I want this courtroom to acknowledge the courage you showed. In a time when many choose to ignore, you stepped forward. Your experience as a boxing coach prepared you for this moment in ways you likely didn't expect. You've taught young people about bravery. Today you demonstrated it. Tony nods slowly, beginning to realize the full weight of what just took place, Your Honor. I'd like to think that any of my former students would have done the same thing. Mr. Duca, the fact that you believe that is exactly what makes you the kind of person who would spend 12 minutes giving CPR to a stranger. Judge Caprio reaches into his desk. Mr. Duca, I want to present you with something, he says, holding up a document. This is a commendation from this court, recognizing your exceptional act of bravery and your courage in saving a life. Tony accepts the certificate with quiet gratitude, clearly moved. His story reminds everyone in the courtroom what it truly means to be a neighbor, to be human, and to value another person's life over personal comfort. Tony's eyes reveal deep emotion as he reflects on the moment. Your Honor, he says softly, if that man goes home to his family tonight, then everything, the sore back, the ticket, all of it, was worth it. If stories like Coach Duca's inspire you, if you still believe in kindness and helping strangers, hit that like button and tell us where you're watching from. Tony Duca stands before Judge Frank Caprio, not as a violator but as a hero. Your Honor, Tony continues, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, I came here expecting to pay a fine and leave. Instead, you've reminded me why I loved coaching, because sometimes we get the chance to make a real difference in someone's life. Judge Caprio smiles warmly. Mr. Duca, you've given everyone here and everyone who will hear your story a reminder that heroes aren't found only in movies. They're everyday people who choose to act when someone needs help. Your Honor, my wife Angela often reminds me that a person's worth isn't defined by personal achievements, but by how much they're willing to do for others. Today feels like one of those defining moments. Judge Caprio looks toward the audience where Tony's family sits. "Mr. Duca," he says, "I understand your wife Angela and your daughters are here today." Tony turns, smiling proudly as he waves to them, a reflection of the shared values that shaped him. "Your Honor, they're the reason I believe real strength means protecting and caring for others," Tony continues. "Angela has been a nurse for 30 years, saving lives every single day. My daughters followed her example." Judge Caprio gestures warmly. "Mrs. Duca, would you please join your husband? I'd like to acknowledge the family that raised a man with such compassion." Angela Duca, poised and graceful, walks forward with her grown daughters. Her calm confidence clearly reflects years of service in healthcare. Judge Caprio addresses her directly. "Mrs. Duca, your husband says you inspired him to live by these values. What would you like people to understand about the principles that guided your family?" Angela answers softly but with conviction. "Your Honor, we've always taught our daughters that true strength carries responsibility. The duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves is one of the highest forms of responsibility." Today, Tony lived up to that principle. Mr. and Mrs. Duca, your example, both in raising your children and serving your community, reflects the best of what a family can represent. One of Tony's daughters, a pediatric nurse, steps forward and says, "Your Honor, watching my father teach kids about courage and discipline, and my mother care for patients in the hospital, taught us that true success is about improving other people's lives. My dad proved that again today." Judge Caprio then addresses the courtroom, speaking not just to those present, but to everyone who will hear Tony's story. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed today is proof that real heroes walk among us daily. They're not wearing capes or uniforms. They're coaches, nurses, teachers, and ordinary individuals who act selflessly when someone needs help. Mr. Duca saw a stranger in danger and didn't hesitate. He risked his own safety to save someone he'd never met, someone who could offer nothing in return. Where are you watching from today? Comment your city and state below, because stories like Tony's remind us that courage and kindness live in every community across America. This family has built their legacy through service, coaching young people, saving lives in hospitals, and now literally bringing a person back from the edge of death on a city sidewalk. Mr. Duca's actions are already inspiring others. The community center where he coached has received calls from people eager to learn CPR. Local businesses are scheduling first aid training for their staff, proof that one act of courage can ignite many more. When one person chooses courage, it sets off a ripple effect that influences countless lives. Tony Duca's decision to assist a stranger will continue inspiring acts of bravery from people he may never meet. The real takeaway here goes beyond performing CPR. It's about the kind of person you decide to be when someone urgently needs help. It's about that moment when you could walk away, and no one would fault you for it, yet you choose to stay. Mr. Duca, you mentioned earlier that anyone would have done the same. But the truth is, not everyone would have acted so swiftly and fearlessly. That's what makes your character so exceptional and so vital in today's world. Tony nods modestly. "Your Honor, if my story motivates even one person to learn CPR or encourages parents to teach their kids about helping others, then I'm thankful this happened." As the hearing concludes, Tony Duca leaves not only with his ticket dismissed, but also as a symbol of everyday heroism, something every community needs. Judge Caprio's recognition shows what's possible when institutions choose to celebrate courage rather than simply process cases, and when leaders use their positions to honor those who step up for strangers. Tony Duca's story reminds us that heroism isn't about having superpowers. It's about the courage to act when a life is on the line, the skill to respond effectively, and the compassion to see strangers as family. Here's the question for all of us. When we witness someone in crisis, do we step forward like Tony Duca, or do we wait for someone else to intervene? Tony discovered that 35 years spent teaching young people about bravery had prepared him for the 12th. Minutes that saved a stranger's life, and that real strength is measured by our willingness to act for others. Tony Duca's story reminded you that real heroes exist in everyday life. Subscribe for more of Judge Caprio's insights. Share in the comments a moment when someone's courage made a difference in your life. Next time you see someone in need, remember Coach Duca. Proof that the greatest fight is often the one we fight for someone else's life. Stay inspired by Judge Caprio's wisdom and share your own story of courage that changed someone's day.